Mixploit is doing two plays really addressing the role of Islam in America and the role of Muslims in the entertainment industry. And the first one, called Learn to Be Latina, which will be in our own Alan Page Auditorium at the Mixploit Theater on the West Bank in Minneapolis, is about a Lebanese American talented woman in her early 20s who the record industry thinks could be the next great superstar, except that she's Lebanese American. And so the play is called Learn to Be Latina, and that's indeed what the music industry tries to turn her into Shakira or Selma Hayek so that she can front as a Latina while making it in the big time as a Lebanese American who's closeted.
Well, I'm, Jamie, and I was born actually in Dearborn, Michigan. I moved around a lot, and I was in Texas and then Canada, and I actually, it's so roundabout how I discovered mixed blood. For my master's program, my professor, my theater history professor, knows the director, and so I randomly got a Facebook message that said, "Hi, Cliff Faulkner connected us. Is it possible we could set up an audition?" And I was like,
I think this is the notion that it would be dangerous and unpopular to have a pop star who's both Arab and Muslim. And so what do they do about it? But they want to still make the money because that's what the entertainment industry does. But they want to make the money by fronting her as something else. So hide who you are, but help us make the money at the same time. And that's really, they deny the likes of Shakira and Selma Hayek as being anything but Latina. And in this case, they're going to take this woman, Hanan, and change her name and turn her into a Latin pop star.
You go, "Oh my God, I'm perfect for this. I should get this. If I don't get this, something's wrong with me."
Always
exactly. And I read it, and the girl she's an only child. She's Lebanese American, and I'm reading this. I'm going, "That's me. That's me. That's me." And so I really connected with the character, and she's kind of kooky and talks like me and is a little, flighty. The play is just so funny because it's such a coming out story of so many aspects. She really figures out who she is in terms of being Lebanese, and she also, comes out in terms of her sexuality, and she really figures out what she wants. And I just think that's something that's so interesting, because when you figure out your community, which I think is what she's doing a lot in this play, she's figuring out where does she belong. She doesn't really feel Lebanese enough, but she's not really American enough. She doesn't know if, she likes girls, does she like boys? And it's just so interesting, sort of her journey between figuring out what her community is, and she goes from not knowing to really figuring it out. Of the stereotypes, because the problem is there are stereotypes, and everybody knows them and nobody talks about them. And this play just turns it upside on its head. And the whole point is she wants to be a pop star, but she can't because she's Lebanese, and Lebanese is not in. She's an Arab. We're not okay with that. That's not marketable. We can't sell that. And the way they do it, the way the writer plays with all of those stereotypes and how ridiculous and sad it is that we have them, it's amazing. And so he really takes it and sort of shoves it in your face. And there's this great quote, I believe it's by Harold Clurman. He talks about, make them laugh, and when their mouths are open, shove the truth in. And that's what this play does so well. Something that unfortunately is true and that we're uncomfortable with, we don't deal with. There's a scene that it's so in your face, and it's purposefully that way because it's something that we don't deal with: race, religion, cultural stuff. We're very uncomfortable with it, and this play really just puts it out there, and it's a lovely story, and everybody's a human being in it. And I think that's what's so interesting, because they're not cartoons. As ridiculous as it is, they're all so honest in what they want and who they are that it really makes it much more poignant than I think if it was just a ridiculous show. This play, and really any good play, is you should walk out either loving it or hating it, and one of those is great. It's that middle ground of that we don't want. So whether you hate it, great. Why? That's not a bad thing. I think some people there's gonna be offensive moments in this, but I think it opens up a dialogue and it gives you an experience, and it really puts you in a place where, if you're offended, it's because you believe in something, and that's such a wonderful thing. So I think that's knowing that that's kind of what the show is meant to do. You're gonna love it, and I hope you do, or there's gonna be moments that you hate, and that's wonderful too.
Tell us a little bit about going through this and what transformed you so far.
You know what I love? There's always something special when an audience comes, because there are parts that we think are funny and then parts that we think are very serious, and then an audience comes and just sort of erases all of that. Whatever they find is going to be funny, then that's what's funny that night. And each audience is different, and you've got to respond to them. And so it's so interesting because some audiences love it, and then you have other audiences who love it but are uncomfortable with it, and then you have audiences who are just like, that's too much, that's too much. But I mean, each of them, it makes sense, but it's so much fun to see what they're reacting to, what they're uncomfortable with, and it fuels us in a really nice way because it's always surprising for us, so we never get bored.
You know, this is kind of a provocative art to make a point. Mm-hmm. And then I know we start with being an Arab American, Lebanese Americans, mm-hmm. and losing yourself.
Right.
In a stardom,
Yeah, and what I love so much is the character Hanan, she doesn't really know who she is at the beginning of the play. Her parents are gone, which we don't necessarily recognize at the beginning. Her parents are dead, and so the only thing she really knows about herself is she's Lebanese, and her name is Mashalani, and that means something to her. So to give that up is really difficult, but it's for her dream. And so throughout the play, she really figures out who she is, not just what her parents told her she was, not what the U.S. told her she was, but who she knows herself to be.
Which is
somebody who is Lebanese and is proud, somebody who's a singer. She just really starts to figure out what she wants. She happens to be in love with a woman, and she comes to accept that, which is a real struggle for her in the play. And her priorities change, because at the beginning it's one thing, it's about stardom, and she's willing to give up who she is for that stardom. And then she realizes that it's really about figuring out her identity and liking herself. Not to sound cliche, but
A lot was made between, national identity
mm-hmm.
and sexual identity.
Yeah.
And Lebanese and lesbian.
Talk right.
us through this process, because this is really what...
Right, it's something that's who she is, and she's proud of it. And I think that's also what happens for her sexual identity as well. It's who she is, and she's proud of it. And I think, they use Lebanese, I think, as, the joke for lesbian Lebanese. Mm-hmm. But I think also it's an interesting decision because, the Lebanese, we tend to be very liberal.
Yes.
And so but again, with that, I think in any religion, homosexuality is sort of touch and go, an issue. There are some who say, no, there's nothing wrong, and there's some who are, no, that's not right. And so I think that adds to it as well. And again, she doesn't have her parents there. She doesn't make that discovery when her parents are there. I think it would be very different if she had made that discovery and her parents were there to say, no, you can't, or we love you no matter what. And she doesn't have that, so it's only she assumes, I feel anyway, she assumes that the parents would not be happy with it, because I think that's what anybody's scared of. And so when she comes to that on her own, it's really something beautiful, and she has a support system. To shock, because shock value is used a lot in this play, and also because stereotypes are stereotypes because there are people who believe them. And so when we're doing that, and it's really interesting because in terms of what the audience laughs at, you can feel sometimes audiences who don't want to laugh because they think, I can't laugh at that, I can't laugh at that. But I really feel like the stereotypes, they're showing you that there's really no credibility to most of these stereotypes, to really all of them. So I love that it's sort of shoved in your face like, hey, this is a stereotype, somebody believed this, it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? And the audiences really take that in.
It's interesting.
My mom, she's a hilarious woman herself, and she loved the show. She's also very, I mean, we were raised, I was born in Dearborn, and our whole family, like maybe I wouldn't have invited my Sitto, but my mom loved it. And she also thinks, I think she thinks that those stereotypes are just silly. So we can laugh at that because the people who believe that are silly in her mind. So there was no discomfort for her, and and also my mom comes to see all my shows, so she's great.
What's wonderful, do you think shows like that, I mean, I don't see a lot of Arab Americans attending that type of shows.
Right.
What's your take on that? I mean, it seems like you breaking away, you're making a point, and still the community here either don't get it, don't.
I think it's difficult because these are stereotypes that the community's actually dealing with. So you have to heal before you can laugh at something. And I think we're still dealing with a lot of prejudice from the US, and people are still uncomfortable with the idea of Islam. And I can understand that it's probably hard to sit there and watch it being so frivolous and laughing as if it's no big deal, because these are real things that people are dealing with. But I also think that laughter is the best medicine, and I think there can really be a healing factor in seeing something like this and seeing that these are real. We can laugh at this. We're not alone. We're all sort of experiencing these things, whether a little bit or whether a lot. Every culture is. So I think I understand why people don't necessarily come and see it, because it's still painful, but I always encourage them to, because it never hurts to laugh.
Is this show going on the road somewhere else?
No, I don't believe so. We close May 13th.
So you're staying here at least till May 13th.
At least until May 13th, right. My plane takes off the 14th, but hopefully I will be back.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
That was
Hey American,